we face there's a lot of things that we are going to face in life that are going to be scary. But the courage, but to have courage means that regardless of the situation's outcomes, courage is going to give me the discipline, the perseverance, the compassion to keep moving forward, regardless of external circumstances.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I am your host and coach, Tyler Johnson. Whether you've tuned in to elevate your mindset, your game, or just your day, you are in the right place. My guest this episode knows what it feels like to have his life turned upside down. At 17, he lost his dad to suicide. That tragically could have broken him, but instead it gave him a deeper purpose to help others find hope, resilience, and strength when life gets hard. He's a best-selling author of Shattered by Suicide, Renewed by Resilience, a book that has impacted readers around the world with his honest message of turning pain into purpose. He's also the co-founder of 4D Leaders, where he equips athletes, coaches, and parents in schools with tools to build confidence, emotional strength, and leadership. Please welcome to the Elevate podcast, Jason Holzer. Jason, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Excited to be on the show. Thanks for having me and look forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, excited to have you on. It was a blessing to get to meet you, I think about a month ago in Kansas City, doing some work and got to see you present and share with some coaches and love the things you had to talk about. But for our audience, I'd love to get you started by just kind of sharing what led you into kind of some of the mental skills space and what you're doing with 4D and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I remember as a kid loving to play sports. But I also remember as a kid feeling very frustrated about maybe, some of the things that either wouldn't go my way or if I was like, struggling with getting better or if I got cut by somebody or I didn't make the team that I wanted and just really not understanding and or having anybody else understand how important the mental game is and why that matters, and then, my family story too is I unfortunately lost my dad to suicide whenever I was 17, which also played a big piece in like, okay, so there's so much about our mind that we can learn about, but there's so much that is also very misunderstood. And so it took me down this path of education as a teacher and a coach, but also took me down this path of curiosity of like, well, how do our minds, emotions, how does that all connect together? Like, why is that such a big deal? Because everything in sports is, or a lot of, whenever I was a kid, was you train the physical skills, you train the catch, the throw, the shot, all this kind of stuff. But then whenever it doesn't translate very well, everybody's like, well, he's hitting 10 shots in a row in practice. Like, why is it not, what's going on here? Right. So, it's just taking me down a journey of like, how do we help, individuals, whether they're kids or adults, develop the mental and emotional skill sets to be consistent, to handle pressure in a positive way, to handle obstacles in a positive way. Um, and that's where I'm at today, man. So just still learning a lot myself as well. I feel like this is a topic that you can never learn enough about.
Yeah. You brought up briefly your father, and I know we had chatted about just also the baseline importance of mental wellness and supporting student athletes and young people. Can you talk a little bit about your personal story, if you don't mind opening up a little bit as a teenager, and then maybe
Yeah.
after that, some of maybe the observations you see in your role now that young people might struggle with?
Yeah, yeah. I was, 17 at the time, almost 18. My dad was in his early 40s, like 42, right? Blue collar job, electrician. I think to me, if I look back at it and the role that he had as a foreman, right, on a big project, I think there was a pressure aspect too that he wasn't able to fully, you know, handle, understand, or even have outlets to where he could go to and share, right? Because like it's a very common thing where we feel like we as men specifically have to have it all figured out, or like if we, it's a sign of weakness if you go ask questions, or and especially in the early 2000s when it happened, 2003, it's gotten a lot better, but I even still myself like get to points where I feel like oh, like how do I share this and still come across as like, your ego can get in the way. So. So with that happened, it was obviously very very tragic, very life altering. Um, and the thing that kept me going though was, I had my family, had a good support system, and I had my faith. And when those things align, right, you still have the tough times, right? It still isn't going to go away, right?
Yeah.
But what I learned was like, how do I find my new normal? Okay, like this event happened, right? And then as I've gotten older, I've learned to like, hey, look, it wasn't because of anything that I did. It's so how do I detach myself from the event and see what truly happened to better understand like what kind of a space he was in and work on things like forgiveness, letting go, to so that way it doesn't continue on because I have boys that are 6 and 9, right? So I'm like, okay, this has to heal here, so it doesn't get passed on from what here, the struggles that you can have from a traumatic standpoint too.
Sure.
So my dad was a great guy. Like he was married to my mom for a long time. He was working hard. It wasn't like he was, a alcohol abuser or anything like that, substance abuse. It wasn't like that. It was just literally like he was here one day and he was gone the next. But we all know there were things that had to build up. Like you just don't get to that point overnight, too.
Yeah.
So that's led to my, really wanting to understand his story to make sure my story is one of resilience, of faith, of overcoming those things and sharing like, hey, look, yes, this happened to me, and I'm sure in your lives there's been similar struggles, challenges. So how can we positively overcome them to create a story that's inspiring for others as well?
I appreciate you sharing and opening up about that. Um, and when your role, you're also in school, right?
Yeah.
As a teacher,
Hmm.
coach. With you've been doing that some time. What are some things in that role that you observe young people kind of struggling with sometimes? And sometimes it's hard to see. It's not on the shirt, it's not on their hat or
Yeah.
their social media post, but what are some of your experiences that kids are looking for some skills and support around?
You know, I think there's one thing that keeps coming to my mind that we all are looking for, and that's connection. Like
Hmm.
we want to feel like we belong.
Yeah,
And that is just human need 101, right?
yeah,
The environment, the landscape that we are currently in as a society is really challenging that ability to feel connected
no doubt.
because you can escape on a screen. You can escape, you don't have to go anywhere per se to get yourself in this, loop of like, well, I can entertain myself here, but eventually, like once you're done with the video games or the phone or whatever it is, and you like who do I have that's physically around me,
Yeah,
you know? And I think this is where sports can be such a huge deal and highly impactful if gone about in an intentional way, because it requires people to work together. It requires people to communicate in a physical setting. It requires you to feel connected to be successful. And if you have a coach that understands those dynamics, that can teach the ability to get kids to work together and overcome obstacles, right? It can really create some great life lessons on and memories too, right? Of like how do you stay
oh yeah,
connected as a group, as a team, regardless of what's going on,
yeah,
and there's not very many other things out there right now for kids that are providing those experiences, right? I mean, you can entertain kids all you want. I see it happen all the time. Kids on devices, iPads, phones, whatever, and they're chill. Like they are not going anywhere. But who are they connecting with? Like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
how are they getting their sense of value? How are they getting their sense of purpose? How are they getting their sense of like, this is I that I matter, right?
yeah.
And if you leave it up to the kids to tell their own stories, you're gonna go down a rabbit hole that like, oh man, like it could be tough, especially as they get into adolescence.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more about connection, and I think my experience coaching is also that, man. I think it's one of the areas that still has great boundaries and guardrails for our phones. Usually just the people that need them for what they need them for.
Hmm.
And it creates, those 2 hours a day where, yeah, you're striving together, and yeah, hopefully coaches create meaningful connections because that environmental climate, like is what leads to any kind of engagement and learning and kind of those next steps. One of the things that I wanted you to also touch about, because again, what I think we all need in coaching in the world sometimes was when you shared a bit about pause, assess, and respond. Different way to kind of give us a tool versus our emotional reactions and emotional outbursts per se.
Yeah.
But can you talk about just that tool and how that can help coaches and young people and I think just humans?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's by simply pausing, like you allow yourself to reflect. Like if you're a coach, what level am I coaching at? And what is honestly the right amount of uh expectation to have for these kids? What's their experience level? What are they coming from? Like, have they played a lot of whatever you're coaching? Have they not? And be able to really like reflect on what are some realistic outcomes I can have for where my kids' ages and playing level are at, right? Because those two have to match up. You have to understand not only the age, but also their experience. Because if you have a 13-year-old that's just starting to play basketball, I mean, they're going to be able to learn quicker, but they're also going to have a lot of mistakes that are going to like the learning. There's going to be a big learning curve too,
Sure,
right?
no doubt.
So I think when you pause and you assess, okay, what are the best things I can do for this kid to help them progress and help them meet meet their own expectations, right? There's a kid that I'm coaching right now. He's on my son's team playing third grade basketball, never played before at all. I'm like, okay, so here is basketball 101, right? We want to have we this is a guy you're going to guard for right now. Like, when he comes across on defense, here's who you got. We'll work on things later. Offensively, right? We want to protect the basketball. We want to when we pass somebody open, then we're just going to cut to the basket. We're going to run to the basket. And you can't, yeah, even like dumb it down. I was like, oh, he probably doesn't understand what cut means. Cut means run to the basket, right? So, because we can get caught up in our own terminology and our
Yeah.
own experience, like we have to like, well, how do I get this to where it's something that they understand?
Yep. Yep.
I understand it, but the great coaches know how to respond and how to get to a language that your players understand,
Definitely.
you know? So, and that takes a lot of like cognitive thought for you as a coach because you've said something 1,000 times and it's kind of how your verbiage says it. But depending on the experience level of the kids you're coaching, you might have to modify that language to make sure it's something that they understand.
Definitely. I was observing a coach recently, and they dealing with probably about 5 or 6 year olds, and they kept saying perpendicular and parallel. And I kind of leaned over when it comes like, do you know what those means? The kid looked at me
What is that?
like,
Yeah.
but again, it was like, you've said it, you know it, but I'm like, I don't think they cover that till like for a couple years in geometry.
Yeah, right.
I think
It's like
so.
closer to middle school, high school, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think, yeah, we have to be cognizant of not assuming all the things in the language. Like the simple, like a great example you gave is cut. Like a lot of kids, you what's cut? They're like, give me some scissors, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, give it the shared definitions. And I think it kind of brings me up to my next question. I think about terms and things and shared definitions and shared values. Can you talk about how important it is for coaches, maybe when they are in that pause assess kind of process of how important it is to create and define some values around your team? Um,
Yeah. I mean, that's the anchor, right? Because especially whenever you're coaching, you know, amateur kids or youth levels. I'm talking all the way through high school.
yeah,
It's going to be inconsistent, right? You're gonna look like you've never touched a ball or never played a game one game, and then the next game you're gonna look like you're unstoppable, right? And then everywhere in between too. And there's a lot of different variables of kids coming from different family backgrounds, different, priority backgrounds as well. And I think when you can ground yourself in values, okay, well, at the end of the day, like when it's all said and done, and I like to use the acronym WIN, because everybody likes to win, right? But what's important now? as opposed to who had more points or runs on the scoreboard. What's important now? And we like have come up with a an acronym called GUTSY, right? And and it's a way that you can like you got to make it simple too. So growth mindset, unity, thankfulness, servant leadership, integrity. Well, if we look at those, that could be very high level for kids that are 7, 8, 9. But growth mindset, just we're just gonna get 1%. We're just gonna get a little bit better today.
Yeah.
Unity, we're gonna work as a team. We're gonna be thankful for what we have. We're gonna lead by example. How we do anything is how we do everything, and we're gonna do the best we can to do the right thing,
Yep.
right? Regardless of popular opinion. So having these little phrases to talk to them about, like, hey, what does integrity mean? What
Yeah.
does it mean to do the right thing at your home, for this team, right? What does it mean to have a growth mindset? Okay, you made a mistake right there, right? You meant to you dribbled it off your foot. Well, okay. I mean, your effort was there. Okay. How can we get a little bit better next time? So I really think it's like, what do I value personally? And how can those values translate? And how can I teach that to where it makes us feel more like we belong? It makes us feel like, even when, one time we lost 49 to 2 one earlier this year. And I had to say, hey, growth mindset, right? These guys are great. Like we can learn a lot from these guys, right?
Yeah.
They've been playing a lot of basketball. Some of you haven't. That's gonna happen. How do you keep playing?
Yeah.
Right? We keep playing till the game is over. I don't care what the score is.
Yeah.
And and from there they're like, oh, like I had a lot of upset kids, but I'm like, you gave your best effort, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
We'll learn from it, we'll get better from it, and we'll get another chance to play again.
Yeah.
So
And I like that you brought up that lopsided day. 'Cause
yeah,
I think sometimes when we, as adults in the environment, they get a lopsided day and they get more discouraged. And I think there's a great video of Kobe Bryant talking about when he was 11 or 12, like didn't even make a bucket in a game, like
yeah,
and it's like I guess I got to work harder. And sometimes there's that. Parental or guardian urge to kind of make steamroll or bulldoze or create the path a little bit easier, or I think to assert blame in the direction of opponent, referee, or those things. Could you talk a little bit about when uh, those kind of things happen when we start to blame the opponent or the ref, or how it undermines our ability to really go back to what you said and have a growth mindset?
yeah. I mean, it goes back to, controlling what you can control. Like, there's only one person that you really have control over, and that is yourself. And learning how to handle those things that you can't control, right? Look, I can't control how much the other team has practiced and played. I can't control what the official's calling, but we can adapt and adjust. We can adapt and adjust our coaching. We can adapt and adjust our attitude, right? And sometimes I call a timeout just to have kids breathe. Like I don't draw anything up.
Love
And
it.
hey, we're just gonna sit here. We're gonna kind of like we're gonna pause. We're gonna just calm our emotions, and that way, whenever we go back out there, we know, like, hey, maybe if the outcome's inevitable, there's still things we can learn and get better at, right? Regardless of what it is. So, and I think it's teaching kids about attitude, about body language, about all those things that really make a difference that may not be able to be measured per se, but you can feel them, you can see them, and you
Yeah.
can notice them, right?
Yeah.
And how much of a difference they can make. Like, yeah, you can lose 49 to 2, but you can still have great effort and you can still be like, you know what? That's going to motivate me to get better.
Yeah.
Like, if you get your butt kicked, hopefully that, there's a victim mentality that we have a lot of times, like, oh, it's okay, man, like we'll just go and that's fine if you don't have competitive kids and that's something that they're doing just for fun. But if your kid's competitive and they're ticked off about losing like that, that's a good thing. That means that they
Totally.
care.
Yeah.
But then the question is like, okay, what are you gonna do about it?
Hmm.
And if they just come home and like, they're doing other things or whatever, and they're not really working on it, I'm like, you can't get mad if you're not gonna do something about it.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna be competitive, go out and practice.
Yeah.
Give it your best effort. right? But if you're going to be competitive and you're not working at it, like stop being competitive,
Hmm.
you know? So that's kind of my thoughts too. Like I love it when kids like care after a loss, like whenever it never bothers them because I was like, because another great enemy we have in society is apathy. Like you're just kind of like you're just kind of floating through life and don't care at all,
Yeah.
right? So I like to see that kids care about it, but like, hey, what's our plan to improve and get better? Having that
Yeah.
growth mindset.
I think
So,
that's I think I was kind of call it's like coaching in the mud or being parenting in the mud, those tough moments. You
hmm
know, there's frustration and they're trying to figure out why, but when you do as you kind of describe there, we instigate a problem solving skill. What do we need to work on? What do we do? And I think that's a lot of times where parents sometimes, well, it was this and such's fault. You're a great dribbler, and versus, hey, I need to work on my dribbling. But I think when we let them kind of sit and what can we do about it? What can we work on? That little problem solving muscle is what drives that competitor too. And I think, yeah, you got to
yeah,
slow down
and
to
I
get
think
there.
when you ask what as opposed to why,
Hmm.
what they can like perceive that. Like, well, what happened? Well, they can go through that. If you ask them why, they mostly don't know. They legitimately don't know. Or it takes too much of like trying to figure out why it happened or whatever, whether you lost by a lot or won by a lot, but like, well, what did you do?
Yeah,
Well, I improved on my dribbling. I improved on I practiced. Okay. See the difference here? Like we went from losing 49 to 2 one game to almost only losing by 2 to the next team we played the next game. Right now, competition was different, maybe that kind of stuff. But look, we got better. We're showing progress,
yeah,
right? And it was because of the what you worked on. And they were able to quickly identify and make connections to practicing helps me improve,
yeah,
and being able to identify like, well, I didn't like that outcome. Okay, there's going to be outcomes in life that you're not going to like. What are you going to do about it?
yeah. Love it. Uh, One of the things that I know we chatted a little bit about, and I'm, I don't know, getting close on about 200 of these episodes, and I think one of the things that I've observed is that some of the longer term pretty successful working with high level athletes. One of the common things and elements that they all talk about is the spirituality piece of an athlete, the spirit. A lot of everybody else hits the other kind of mental, physical, physiological, kind of the analogy of the four legs on a table. But I think we talked about having a spiritual piece, and how does a coach do that? And even sometimes in a dynamic where you might have constraints to certain faiths in your public environments, there's another level to that. And I loved how you said about how coaches can kind of create an environment of spirituality, and then also, what are ways that coaches that want to steward or explore that are maybe in a public school that feel constrained? What are ways that they can create a climate with spirituality as you described?
Yeah, yeah. I think, if you get kids to understand that Um, s- spirituality can also mean when you walk in a room, everybody's better because they experienced your presence. Like everybody's better. Like it's not just the coaches. It's not just, and that could just mean, hey, a friendly fist bump, a high five. When kids make mistakes, which is going to happen a lot. Like I have a four-letter phrase that I tell kids to say. That's okay. Next play, right? Because you're gonna want that same compassion when you make a mistake. And when you have things like those little phrases that are easy for kids to remember, first of all, you say that's okay. Like, oh man, okay, look, everything is gonna be all right. Next play mentality means I'm gonna get another chance. I can do better than that. So you really kind of help kids foster an environment of because I am here everything else is better around me. Like the air's lighter, there's fun being had, there's positivity. But I'm also gonna probably I want kids to also like, hey, like challenge your teammates to make them better. Like have them work harder, right? If somebody's doing something they're not supposed to, that's where integrity comes in. Like, hey man, like we're trying to work on this together. Like, we're trying to get better. Yes, we're having fun, but we're not trying to be silly and goofy. Like that's not the time and place for this, right? So that's where like, spirituality can come in is just simply being able to walk into a room and because you're physically present, the world is a better place around you.
Yeah, love it. As we kind of want two more questions. One, I wanted to just share a little bit about your books that you've written, and we'll link them up in your website and stuff where people can find them. But share a little bit about some of the things you've wrote.
Yeah. So we have a newsletter that we write monthly. And then I wrote a book about my story. I wrote it because I wanted people to understand what experience I had as a loss survivor, the things that I went through to be more relatable. But also like I wanted to share with people the things that I did to find my new normal, the values that I put in place, the routines, the healing process. Because like things like that don't just heal overnight. It's probably it's a lifelong journey, quite honestly. You know, finding your new normal. It probably took me personally probably a good 3 to 5 years to really find my new normal after my dad passed away and come to terms with that, right? So um and so that was the reason why I wrote it was I was like, if it just helps one person feel more like they're not alone. Because whenever I wrote it, I was like, I'm the only one that has ever gone through something like this. That's how I felt, right? Because the
Yeah,
community, that kind of stuff, there wasn't like a, support group or anything like that for what I was going through. So I felt like I was on an island, you know. So the goal was to, if somebody stumbles across it that's had a similar traumatic experience that like, well, Jason went through it. He turned out he's making the best of his situation. Why can't I? Um, so yeah, it's called Shattered by Suicide, Renewed by Resilience. Learn how to move forward after being left behind. And I just shared my story, man, So I don't have a PhD in psychology or anything like that. It was just literally just me sharing what happened to me as a 17-year-old. But again, not allowing that to define me, but refine me and help me become a better version of myself.
yeah. Well, I'm glad you are here sharing with us, and I'm sure I'm sure it's helped more than one, and it's got a lot more work to do, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
with one of our favorite things we like to ask is if as we wrap up, if I gave you a magic wand, it's magic, you can do as you like, but with this magic wand overnight, you would bless upon all the young student athletes a mental skill set, and they would wake up with it tomorrow. What is the thing that you would want every young athlete to wake up and have in their toolkit tomorrow?
Hmm. That's a great question because there's so many routes you can go with that. Um, I would say courage
Hmm, tell me more.
because we face, there's a lot of things that we are going to face in life that are going to be scary. But but to have courage means that regardless of the situation's outcomes, courage is going to give me the discipline, the perseverance, the compassion to keep moving forward, regardless of external circumstances. Because it's an internal thing that you have that also courage builds confidence. Doing things that are new, that are scary, build the confidence to know, hey, I did that before, I can do it again. So I would say the skill of courage is something that I would wish upon every athlete because courage helps you push beyond your limits and do things that nobody ever thought was possible.